This is the Polestar 1. It's a sporty coupe with a sophisticated, understated shape you'd be forgiven for thinking looks an awful lot like a Volvo. And that's because it does, riddled with styling cues providing more than a subtle nod to Polestar's Swedish parent company. But don't be fooled by appearances. Though the car shares significant DNA both inside and out, this thing is unlike any Volvo on the planet. And of all the places on the planet, where better than Sweden on an occasionally lovely summer's day to finally get my first session behind the wheel of a pre-production Polestar 1 and see what really sets it apart. It all starts with the powertrain, which is similarly familiar, but also different. Up front, we have a 2-liter turbocharged and supercharged engine that, if that sounds familiar, well, that's because it's basically the same T8 powertrain that we've seen in the Volvo XC90 and in other cars as well. That means it is a hybridized engine, but the real magic is actually happening behind me. That's where there are 2 more electric motors, one driving each of the rear wheels. Total power, about 600 horsepower, but almost 2/3 of that is running up front. Because of the 2 motors at the rear, that means we've got torque vectoring going on. So as I'm going through the corners and as I get on the power, I can actually feel it starting to move the car in and helping to pitch it in a little bit, which is definitely an interesting sensation. What we've got is basically, think of an Acura NSX, but turned 180 degrees. So the gas engine's up front, driving the front wheels, the electric motors at the rear, driving the back. Like the NSX, the Polestar 1 doesn't handle like you think it might. This is a car that actually rewards some less than subtle applications of the throttle mid-corner, outside rear tire accelerating to help the car pivot and turn, even in some occasionally unpleasant and rainy conditions. Mind you, I'm not complaining about the weather. Though sometimes less than ideal for filming, soggy roads are absolutely ideal for feeling out the natural behavior of a car. As it turns out, that behavior on the Polestar 1 is very good indeed. A lot of that comes down to the Öhlins dampers, and Öhlins makes some of the best suspension on the market, but interestingly in the Polestar 1, these are basically old school shocks. There's no adaptive suspension going on here. Yes, you can adjust them if you want to, but you need to pop the hood and turn some knobs if you're doing so. You might think that would lead to some compromised handling, that it would be either too stiff or too soft, but I actually think that the Polestar engineers have done a really good job of finding that perfect sweet spot. Yes, the car is firm, but it's not punishing, and when it comes over a crest or over a bump, it just settles immediately. And you just feel like you can get right back on the power again and dive right back into the next corner. It feels really, really well balanced, especially for a car that weighs as much as this one does. This car weighs, are you ready for this? Over 5,100 pounds. That's more than the Tesla Model S, more than a Bentley Continental GT. But out here in the corners, you'd never know it. That weight comes despite significant use of carbon fiber throughout the car's exterior, a hint of weave peeking through here and there, but really only put on prominent display on the inside. To continue on the familiar trend, the interior here features a lot of components that we've seen on other Volvos before. The steering wheel, the seats, the Sensus infotainment system, even the crystal shifter are the same sort of things that you'd see on an XC90 or an XC60. But weirdly, it actually all works here. And I think that that is testament to how good Volvo's interiors are these days, that you can take the interior out of a $60,000 or $70,000 SUV, drop it into a car that costs 2 or 3 times as much, and it still looks good. But there have been some pretty significant upgrades. We've got carbon fiber all over the place to emphasize the sportiness, and an upgraded B&W sound system that sounds remarkably good. And that leaves just one final aspect of the Polestar 1 to discuss: the look of the thing. I've saved the best for last because I believe this is a remarkably good-looking car, but again, a familiar one. It's an almost perfect copy of a 2013 concept car from Volvo called, appropriately, the Concept Coupe. As a concept, that car previewed the future of Volvo to come, styling cues like the Thor's hammer headlights and those tall taillights evolving and appearing on subsequent models like the Volvo S90 sedan. But in the Polestar 1, they are on display in their most pure form, creating a car that is anything but ostentatious, except for these unfortunate graphics on the pre-production model here. While other cars in this class shout their performance with loud colors and big wings, the Polestar 1 is more like a well-made suit. It doesn't beg for attention, but is so perfectly tailored it makes the wearer feel like a superhero. Just look at those creases in the rear fenders. Savile Row has nothing on this. The Polestar 1 then is a complex proposition. A 600 horsepower heavyweight with the agility of something far lighter and, frankly, the interior of something far cheaper, all wrapped in a delightfully understated package. While the fully electric Polestar 2 looks to push the brand into new territory, the Polestar 1 is a mixture of familiar and fresh, less a clean break and more of a smooth transition, and a beautiful sign of good things to come.